When I did my last IQ and aptitude test, I was taken into a separate room and I was interrogated to see if I cheated.
Well done, and I guess we'll hear a little bit more from you and your genius in a minute. But before then, I just want to say that on my channels, I've responded to an awful lot of silly stuff over the past 18 months. And most of the time, I don't mind it, I just find it amusing. But there's something about this current situation and the sheer level of stupidity of some of the things I'm hearing that I am getting genuinely annoyed. So idiots, this is for you.
So what is a virus anyway? Well, a virus is nothing more than a solvent, and these solvents are created within the cells of the body.
A virus is just a part, a piece, a makeup of bacteria.
And social media is also jam-packed full of similar comments from people who should also think about what they're going to say before they say it, and then not say it anyway. And I've got to say, this guy here must win the internet for his reply to somebody who correctly told him what a virus actually was. So what actually is a virus then? Well, I'm going to get this question out of the way very quickly because I think by now we all know. And also right now there are a ton of videos on this very subject flying around the internet. So here's just a quick recap in 25 seconds. Now for a start, unlike the brain cells of some of the people you're going to see in this video, viruses are real. And here's an electron microscope image of our old friend COVID-19. Now on the outside of a virus are things called glycoproteins. And if the glycoproteins on the outside of a virus are a good match for the receptors on the outside of a cell, then it can gain entrance to the cell where it releases its own genetic material and forces the cell to mass produce other viruses until the host cell is destroyed. Now, as off-putting as I actually find the idea of taking a live bat and dropping it into boiling water in order to cook it, it's not at all likely that the coronavirus was the result of somebody eating bat soup, which was one of the stories doing the rounds early on in the pandemic. You see, remember those glycoproteins we talked about earlier? Well, with the SARS coronavirus, which also started off in a bat, they mutated just enough for them to be a good match for the receptor cells on a civet. They then mutated again so they could infect human cells. The MERS epidemic went from bat to camel to human, and early evidence suggests that COVID-19 did not jump straight from bat to human, but made its way into the pangolin first, which is a problem, and we'll see why later on. Time for part 2.
You cannot catch a virus. And why can't you catch a virus? Because it's impossible.
First of all, we cannot catch viruses.
Well, given that some sources are suggesting that the first case was actually reported in China as early as the 17th of November, and given that at the time of the making of this video we now have, a shitload of cases, it would appear that this virus can actually spread. But how? Well, we all know that limiting human contact is very important. In the early part of the outbreak, Russia closed its borders with China before it even had a single reported case. As a result of that, it now just sits at 0.9 deaths per million of its population, truly showing that early action to stop people mixing can be very effective. So why is it then that COVID-19 appears to spread so quickly when compared with other outbreaks? Well, some early estimates place COVID-19's R0 value anywhere near as high as 3. Now, an R0 value basically tells us how many people on average will be infected by somebody else who has the virus. This graph here shows us a very stark picture of just how much more aggressively a virus with an R0 value of around 3 will rip through a population compared to even a virus with an R0 value of 2.6. To put that into perspective, the flu has an R0 value of between 1.4 and 1.6, giving us a line that's even flatter than the purple line on this graph. But why does it spread so quickly? Well, we all know that COVID-19 can be spread through sneezing. But unlike the flu, the COVID-19 virus can survive in those tiny water droplets for far longer. It was believed that the flu virus, for example, could remain able to infect outside of the body for anything up to 48 hours. But more recent research suggests that actually under normal conditions, this number is far lower. In fact, just a few hours, whereas current evidence is suggesting that COVID-19 could remain able to infect in water droplets on hard surfaces for days. In addition to that, COVID-19 can also be sustained in fecal matter, making the fecal-oral transmission route a possibility. Some suggest that even two people in separate apartments in the same building that share poor plumbing can be part of the same transmission chain. And then we have the series interval, which is essentially a measure of how quickly one person can pass a virus onto somebody else. Now for COVID-19, we can be thankful that it's not the shortest series interval out there, but it is still shorter than other large epidemics such as the SARS virus. Oh, And remember this guy? Well, it turns out that the scales of the pangolin have reputed healing properties, making it an animal that is ferried far and wide on both legal and illegal markets. This is something that would only have helped speed up the transmission of COVID-19. Next point.
Black people can't get coronavirus. I don't know if it's just that melanin drop that's in our body, but we cannot get coronavirus. They tested that and it failed.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because this newspaper article here from the 11th of April, asking why African American people make up a highly disproportionate number of COVID-19 cases, would tell you to shut up. As would this from the UK, where recent evidence puts ethnic minorities as making up a third of all cases. So no, the colour of your skin is not going to stop you getting this virus. But can we boost our immunity towards it no matter what colour we are? Well, there are some interesting theories out there, like this one, which I'm not going to go into. And there are also some absolute Fruit Loops out there who think they've invented their own cure, as highlighted last week by friend of the channel, Seek Truth, Speak Truth. I've linked his video in the description.
And this is good for us, and God wants us to have it. It's the healing of the nations, despite Kevin Savage. It can kill coronavirus.
But the truth is, it doesn't matter how badly you sing or what type of snot milkshake you want to drink. The truth is, you are not going to become immune to COVID-19 until you've been exposed to its antigens, which is why a vaccine is so important.
It has been around for a while. If you look it up, it says that it's pretty much like the common cold.
More people right now are dying of the regular flu. That's all this is.
Wrong. In your country, up to 20,000 people die from flu-related causes each year. Right now, over 700 New Yorkers are losing their lives every single day to COVID-19. And in total, we've already hit over 7,000. So just shut up and get your facts right. And while you're doing that, take a look at a couple more silly comments.
You do know the virus is the effect, don't you? Not the cause, yeah. Because a company dumped some toxins in the water, so some dolphins got a virus. Did they get it from other dolphins? No, the body created it to flush away the toxins. How'd you not know that? Yeah? Well, you think that's stupid? Hold me beer. If viruses were contagious, we would all be dead. By one of the many viruses we've had in history, yeah, it would be inevitable.
Now, a virus does not attack cell tissue. What happens is that as a virus, which is a solvent, breaks down the toxic residue within a cell, it creates essentially a toxic waste. So that's why you'll feel shitty if you've got a viral infection.
So how exactly does COVID-19 harm the body? This is the air sac or alveoli in the lung. This is where necessary gas exchange takes place. In other words, we absorb oxygen into our blood and we lose carbon dioxide from our blood. Now inside the alveoli we have these type 1 alveolar cells. Their job is to facilitate this gas exchange, and they are very, very thin to allow it to happen. But just as importantly, we also have type 2 alveolar cells, and their job is to reduce the surface tension within the alveoli, which stops the alveoli from collapsing. Now it is these type 2 cells that do get invaded by COVID-19, and that means if the body doesn't respond, eventually the alveoli will collapse, preventing that all-important gas exchange. But the body does respond to this infection, and the white blood cells release chemicals called interleukins. Now there's a lot of interleukins, but we're concerned about number 1 and number 6. But these interleukins also cause an inflammatory response, which draws fluid out of the capillaries that are surrounding the alveoli. This puts a physical pressure on the air sac and again can cause it to collapse. Or this extra fluid can also enter the alveoli, blocking off gas exchange as if we were drowning. Now this of course makes it incredibly difficult to breathe, causing the patient to expend an incredible amount of energy gasping for breath, and this is why ventilators are so important. Now while all that's going on, the same interleukins that cause that inflammatory response trigger the hypothalamus to raise the temperature of the body, resulting in a fever. Now the damage to the alveoli obviously decreases the amount of oxygen we can take into our blood, and that causes the heart to work faster, to pump faster, to desperately try and get whatever oxygen is in the blood around the body, and you might think that that will have the effect of increasing blood pressure. But actually, if the inflammatory response we talked about before spreads to other parts of the body, then we can lose an enormous amount of fluid from the blood, which actually causes a massive drop in blood pressure. But of course, COVID-19 isn't going to affect everybody as seriously as that, only a small percentage of the people. However, when the number of cases are so high because it's spreading so rapidly, that small percentage becomes a big number of people, and that is why we need to be acting to make sure we're not overwhelming the NHS.
I execute judgment on you, COVID-19!
Doctors are hoarding the antidote and are only giving it to friends and families and people who are paying top dollar. Did you know that?
I demand judgment on you!
Oh yeah, vaccine. Let's put that disease inside of my body now. So that I got more mercury and more problems, maybe even a little microchip in there. To again, enslave people.
I demand! I demand! I demand!
Well, where do I start with that? Well, firstly, no. You can't cure the coronavirus by shouting at a TV camera while stood next to Harry Potter's granddad. And no, there is no cure yet. And you?
Who? Me?
Yeah, you. If you're so convinced you're going to have a tracking microchip injected in you, then maybe you should put down that GPS-enabled location detecting smartphone that you're filming your video on. Now, the truth is we didn't manage to make a vaccine for SARS and MERS. All of those attempts were unsuccessful, and the latest reports are that there won't be a vaccine within the next 12 to 18 months. But by that, they mean a vaccine which is safe to be given to the masses. Those vaccines are first tested on animals, and any that show promise are then tested in phase 1 on a small number of people to make sure that they are safe for humans. Testing then moves on to phase 2 and phase 3 with progressively larger number of people to see how effective the vaccine actually is. However, experimental vaccines can be made much sooner with the aim of giving them to key workers and to the vulnerable. And new emergency legislation has been put in place to make this more possible. So where does that leave us? Well, in the meantime, we are inevitably going to build up some sort of herd immunity, but we all know there's going to be a big cost to that. Other than that, I would never claim to know what needs to be done to balance saving as many lives as possible and saving the economy. But I do know that while that is being figured out, all we can do is show as much common sense as possible and not, for a second, listen to idiots like this.
I think this whole thing is a big hoax and a bunch of bullshit.
So here we are, we're driving through the parking lot. And would you look at that? Nothing. Supposable war zone, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we know the hoax is going on. I'm going to Kettering next. I'm going to all the hospitals in town to video the non-existent flu.
We're going to see if there's body bags, people dying in droves like they promised us that was going to happen.
Now, I've absolutely no idea what people like that are actually expecting to see when they walk into a hospital reception. Of course it's going to be quiet. And maybe that's got something to do with the fact that they've, cancelled all non-emergency procedures. Or maybe it's because they've either banned or severely limited the number of visitors allowed. Or maybe it's because we're in a lockdown, so people are safe at home instead of being out on the streets getting drunk, arguing, fighting, and landing themselves in A&E. And maybe, just maybe, you idiots that are going into hospital receptions and harassing the staff should maybe just shut up for a bit and let the grown-ups figure a way out of this mess. Take care, everybody.